I mean, I think a lot of people sort of, in this country now, kind of think of it as a bygone thing, something that was a touchstone of like the late 70s, the early 80s, the whole 80s period. And it's almost like they don't realise that it's still going on. And it's been through all these changes, and it's been through, and there are some people I talk to who are, everybody's always surprised. They're like, what do you do for them? No, I write comics. Oh, what comics? Oh, well, 2010. Is that still going on? Oh, are they still making that? I bought that when I was a kid, and I'm like,
there's a danger of that it's become, people subscribe to it, so they get it sent to them, or they order it, or they go to a comic shop to buy it. And it doesn't exist on the newsstands or newsstands anymore.
Well,
it
does exist, but it's not. If you were looking for a comic, you wouldn't dream to be looking at the top shelf for it. Well, not the top shelf, but it's not like it's not displayed with the other comics. So you kind of think, it can't exist then. You know, it's a weird sort of thing now.
Well, there seems to be two comic shelves in the newsagents. There's like the kids one, which is all plastic bags with toys in it, and like a little free comic with your toy. It always seems. And then there's, I don't know, you've got like all the science fiction ones like SFX and Death Row. Well, that was going. And then 2000 AD will be with that, and then there'll be a couple of mobile reprints that they do now. Those anthology reprints. But yeah, it is. They've sort of divided it up into kids comics and
perceived adult.
comics.
That's the thing. I mean, it started out as a comic for 7 or 8 year olds.
Yeah.
And those 7 or 8 year olds are still reading it.
Yeah.
I mean, as they were then. And it's kind of gotten older and older and older until it fits in this sort of weird non-niche. I mean, it exists unto itself. There's nothing else like it. You have to go to France to really find something equivalent, and there isn't really anything equivalent there either. There's nothing with the attitude. It's quite different. It's quite a unique thing anywhere in the world.
I think the longevity is something that actually goes a long way to explain certainly the way it's lasted so long, obviously. But the idea is like there's such a loyalty with the readers. I mean, you just like see people, even this convention. I was talking to a guy earlier that I met a couple of years ago here, and he's like took a break from 2000 AD, and now he's like in his late 30s and he's reading 2000 AD again.
Yeah, I get a lot of nostalgia emails. They're now got children of their own.
Yeah.
But they still remember, Rogue Trooper or something else from 2000 AD. Yeah, so we have left a kind of mark.
Which is good. It's a slightly weird position I'm sitting in at the minute, because there was a one-off, and for my sins I can't remember who drew it, but right after that it was the Midnight Surfer. And those were like my first issues of 2000 AD. That was my first proper Dread story. So yeah, there's a kind of strong nostalgia. I'm freaking out, is basically what I'm trying to say. But yeah, the thing is, you're now getting that thing of the people who are working in it are the same people who, like Charlie and like say and John, are the people who read it, and that's sort of that kind of love of it feeds back into it. In a really good way.
Definitely.
But it's a very specific thing, and it doesn't work anywhere else. I mean, you tried to take it to America, and it doesn't really settle in America.
I think it's the anthology thing, though, isn't it?
They don't get anthology, that's true, which is a shame for them, because I think it would be a great way of generating. It's a great way of generating talent if you can give people short stories, because we have to fill 28 pages of content with a newbie. That's a punishing workload for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. If you can give them 8 pages, it's not too bad.
There's also the black and white thing for the Americans. Plus the fact, I think the Americans were miffed that they hadn't thought of it first. They can be like that, Americans. Any Americans in here? And are they armed? So
I remember sort of like in the real high sales figure days when Cam was doing VC, and Brian Barn was still working, Mark was still working in 2000 AD, and some Americans came over to UCAT, and they came to the offices of 2000 AD, and they couldn't believe how many copies 2000 AD was selling weekly, 250,000 copies, regularly, every single week, and they would, like at that particular time, the mid to late 70s, It's like, American comics just weren't selling anything at all, probably since the now.
There was a story I heard is that the original Dread Batman team up. They weren't sure whether they wanted to go ahead because Egmont Fleetway didn't want to be associated with such a bummer character as Batman. Dread sold more than Batman did at that time.
I know it's really funny as well because a couple of times, a couple of American artists did covers and one or two strips. I think there was an artist, I can't remember his name, did a couple of episodes of Stainless Steel Rat, and I know Carlos did most of it. But they just didn't. It was really weird because it just stuck out in such an uncomfortable way, the American style of doing comics. And it's interesting that it's like the British artists and writers can go to America quite comfortably, it seems, and fit in very, very well, and it's like slot in, whereas it didn't seem to happen the other way around.
They're more adaptable.
That's probably it.
I think it's discipline. If you can do a story in 6 pages,
Oh, yeah.
got your craft
That's
out.
probably the thing, isn't it?
Teaching that, I mean, from a writing point of view, the absolute best kind of training I ever got was doing the future shocks, and even more than that, just kind of growing up with the expectation that if I wanted to get a job in writing for comics, the way in for me as like a guy growing up in Britain was to do 5 pages twist ending, and to have that ingrained in me very early on. It's a discipline, and it really teaches you a lot of things like density, getting a beginning, a middle, and an end in there. Just like working out the twist ending means usually you've got to put in a Chekhov's gun, which is the gunfight in Act 3 that's got to be put in Act 1 for non-Chekhov fans.
Any non-Chekhov fans?
Yeah, who likes Chekhov? He's the guy from Star Trek. But yeah, it's a massively useful thing, and I imagine the same's true for for an artist, just in terms of getting the storytelling in that space. I mean, I don't know, I don't know my art from my elbow, so. Yeah, so please somebody rescue me from that terrible plan.
Well, I actually agree with Cam. So I'm a fan of art and good art, and that's the thing I pick up first and foremost.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to choke on this, but I actually think it's the strength of the writing that's kept 2000 AD going for so long. And it started out with such a strong identity because of how strong the writers were right from the very beginning. I mean, John Wagner and Alan Grant and Pat Mills.
You find that, working on a John Wagner, periodically do a John Wagner Dread, and it's always, I'm drawing it, it's always a little bit more difficult than I expect it to be. It's like tough to get it in, and you get it right, and you end up with this thing that looks exactly like a John Wagner Dread. And I don't know how that happened. It always works that way, and I've done Dread for other writers, Al particularly here, and it's never the same. It's good, but it's never a Wagner Dread. They're always perfect. Yeah. Little jewels of scripts.
Well, it's incredible. It's an incredible run when you consider John, especially how he has written Dread since 1977, pretty much non-stop. And to John's credit, he could have easily have stopped writing Judge Dredd and gone to America and served his sentence working for DC or Marvel or whatever. Yeah, and it's to his credit that he decided pretty much not to. I mean, I know he didn't exactly get on very well with his experiences with the Americans, but and he still could easily just stop any moment he wants to.
Well, John's half American.
But he chooses to. Sorry,
John's half American.
Is he half American? I didn't know.
His mother was from Greenock, near Glasgow, and his dad was a GI.
Oh.
Not a lot of people know. But then he's got a thing about America. He almost was speaking to me one time. He almost resented the fact of being such a bully at school where they lived. I think he lived in Cleveland. And John was always been big. He's always been 6'4". So I think he did hurt a lot of people. And I sometimes wonder in his stories, little guy stories. You could see him very easily maybe going the other way and the little guy really getting hammered by Dredd, but there's always a wee twist. Dredd either lets him off or he only gets 2 years in the cubes.